All right, what's up, YouTube? This is BoxingWave. We're going to do a quick recap of the Andy Ruiz Jr. Luis Ortiz fight. So most of you guys that was here on the live commentary, shout out to everyone that joined us. All right, had a good time as usual. Shout out to the new subscribers to the channel as well. Thank you for everyone that supported. So we just got off live, and listen, it was a decent fight. You know, I thought it was going to be a little bit more action-packed just based on the styles. Andy Ruiz, usually a pressure fighter, usually let his hands go, usually throws a lot of combinations. He fought a different fight. This is probably the least I've ever seen him throw punches, all right? Even in the Joshua rematch, even in that fight, he would let his hands go more, even though he was overweight, even though he lost a fight, even though he didn't look great in that fight. He let his hands go more in that fight, where in this fight, he was looking for counters. He fought a very cautious fight. He was just looking to kind of ambush Luis Ortiz. He had a lot of success in doing that. But with that, even though he did that, he just wasn't active a lot. So a lot of the other rounds where he didn't score knockdowns, you know, he didn't win those rounds. All right. He scored 2 knockdowns in the second round, and he scored 1 in the 7th. And the other couple rounds that I gave Andy was simply because he was able to hurt Luis Ortiz, right? He landed a shot that was big enough to stun Luis Ortiz. If you saw the breakdown going into this fight, we kind of discussed it already. We knew, I think most of us agreed that Andy Ruiz is more durable, you know, especially Luis Ortiz at this age. He's 43 years old. He just doesn't have the legs. We predicted for him to get knocked down in this fight. Even though I also predicted Andy to get hurt or dropped at some point. He didn't get dropped at any point in this fight. You know, maybe he got dropped by Areola, maybe simply because, I don't know, maybe they have a history, they have experience in sparring, they know each other. So maybe Chris Areola just knew exactly what to do with Andy Ruiz. Plus, maybe Andy Ruiz didn't take him as seriously. Andy was very cautious for this fight, okay? Even though he had his hand speed advantage, and you can see it clearly, he was very cautious. He just waited for counters, looked for opportunities. There were certain rounds where he barely threw any punches, and I'm assuming the reason why the scorecards were so close, even though it was unanimous, the scorecards was close because the judges gave Luis Ortiz many rounds where he didn't get dropped in, all right? But the fight overall, again, wasn't the action-packed fight I thought I was going to see. Luis Ortiz, even though he won a lot of rounds, I think a lot of it was based on Andy Ruiz not being that active, okay, and being super cautious for this fight. He said at the end of the fight that it was a different game plan. They wanted to take a different approach. They didn't want to bring the pressure this time around. They kind of just wanted to capitalize on opportunities, openings by Luis Ortiz. All right. So overall, I don't believe second round. There was 2 knockdowns there. I don't believe that the second knockdown should have been scored a knockdown, because Ortiz, yes, he was still trying to recover from the first knockdown, but the punch that was thrown wasn't landed by Andy Ruiz. You know, I think it was like, should have been a slip in my opinion, because it wasn't a clear or clean punch that landed. You know, it was just kind of like he fell down, and you know, you could go either way with that. I mean, if you want to score a knockdown based on the fact that he wasn't fully recovered yet, then fine. But there wasn't a punch landed in the second knockdown. But it seemed like the punches that landed in behind Ortiz's head, same punch that was landed by Wilder, same punch that was landed by Charles Martin in the first knockdown in their fight. Ortiz just doesn't have the legs. For a 43-year-old man, yes, he fights good still, okay? He does fight good still for his age. He's still a good fighter. He still beat a lot of guys. He was on point with his left hand. Even though Andy wasn't high volume, didn't bring the pressure, Luis Ortiz is just, he's in phenomenal shape and everything, but he just don't have the punch output as a younger version of himself. you know. And not only that, he's just not as durable. He just can't take the clean shots. Every time he landed clean, you can tell in his body language that it hurt every single time. And you know, honestly, I know I predicted a decision win for Andy. I thought Luis Ortiz was gonna get stopped. Even in the 12th round, as I was watching and you guys were here, because he was being so aggressive in the 12th, I thought he was gonna get clipped by Andy and get knocked down again. It just seemed like whenever Andy landed in a short right hand or whatever, it was just hurting Ortiz. Ortiz left eye was starting to close up. And it was tough to watch a little bit because I'm seeing the guy getting beaten up now. I know Deontay Wilder was able to stop him twice, but Ortiz actually really looked old here. We've been calling him an old man for years now, but tonight he was the first time I felt like he really looked like an old man. He looked old, and some may say even in the Charles Martin fight he looked old, which he did at some points, but in this fight he really was getting beat up. His eyes were shutting, and I don't know, man. I think I would like for him to retire. I think the opportunities as far as getting a title shot is over. But I also believe that the other options that are available, doesn't really do anything for his career. Obviously it's another paycheck. But as far as getting like bigger opportunities, I think those days are done. I think those days are done. On the live, I said, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight a Dillian White. I don't think it would happen. The British fighter from Matchroom. I don't think it would happen now. But I know Dillian White is looking for a new partner to dance with in his next fight, in his comeback fight. And I think it's risky, even though Ortiz looks old. Wouldn't expect it to happen, but it's a fight that is a good fight. Same thing with Derek Chisora. A fight we haven't seen. Derek is another guy that I would like for him to retire, but he's going to stick around as long as he keeps winning. And even though Ortiz lost his fight, he still looked good. So I would like a Derek Chisora fight or a Dillian White fight or maybe a Martin Bakole fight. These are guys that don't have a dance partner for the next fight. And those are fights that I think that are true competitive fights that are realistic. Everything else is scheduled, or I don't think it's a good fight or whatever for the time being. All right, Daniel Dubois, I'm not going to say him. I don't think it's a good fight for Ortiz. I want Ortiz, if he is going to stick around, it seems like he wants to continue boxing. I want to do Dillian White. I want to do Derek Chisora type of thing. All right. As far as Andy Ruiz, we already know what this was all about. This is all about being the winner, the opponent for the winner of Helenius and Deontay Wilder. I think all of us are expecting Deontay Wilder to win that fight. So if he does win that fight, Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder will be pay-per-view. Andy only lost to Joshua. He's beaten Joshua and he lost to Joshua. And it's going to bring pay-per-view money in. People are going to be interested in the fight. This fight really didn't make me feel that Andy has a shot against Wilder. I thought before that Wilder would just knock him out. And I still believe today that Wilder will just knock him out, especially if he looks impressive against Helenius with the weight drop, the weight cut again, which I think he needs to be. I think he needs to be slimmer. I don't think Andy could beat Deontay Wilder. But the fight makes sense. Andy does have a win over Joshua, and he's only lost to that. Oh, well, he lost to Joseph Parker, too. Forgot about that. But good fight. Good fight for Wilder. Good fight for Andy Ruiz. He's come a long way. I just don't think the approach he took in this fight, as far as just looking for that one shot, that one counter, is going to work with Deontay Wilder. I think he needs to put a little bit of pressure on Wilder and let his hands go more. This approach wouldn't work with Wilder. I think he needs to outscore Wilder in case Wilder doesn't knock him out. If it does go to the cards, Andy would have a better chance of winning against Wilder, who is known to slow down in the second half of fights as well. All right, so anyway, that's what I'm expecting. Not a great fight, but a decent pay-per-view. De Los Santos got a win against Jose Valenzuela, which was crazy. You know, I was just bigging Jose Valenzuela up and saying that, you know, he was the next up at the lightweight division, a threat at the lightweight division for the future, and he got stopped in 3 rounds. All right, good round, a good fight. Isaac Cruz picked up a stoppage win against Ramirez, which was very expected. And who else fought? Somebody else fought. Can't think of him. Can't think of it right now. Sorry about that. Anyway, overall card was decent, but we got more fights on the way. Triple G and Canelo breakdown is coming soon. Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall coming soon. All right, be on the lookout for both of those. But I'm gonna get out of here, man. Y'all have a good night. Again, please hit that thumbs up for me. If you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night. Peace.